Hello, welcome to the BQ Report, where we talk about politics and many other topics revolving around current news. I am here with Rafi Gaffey. How are you today, Rafi?
You're good, man. Thank you.
Um, Today's topic is going to be invasion of privacy and democracy. So, why don't you start us off with invasion of privacy and how what you see is currently important in that realm?
Sure. So I've been following a bit of a tunnel here, and not to get all conspiratorial, but one thing leads to another, and you do more investigating and realize all these things that seem pretty evil are linked together. And so I've been following down that rabbit hole, but I also want to be careful not to be on the deep end of all that stuff. So what I've been digging up lately is there's a scholar by the name of Jay Dyer, and he's talking about the Great Reset. Now, what that's all about is just in a nutshell, the world's powers attempts to impose control on privacy, on freedoms, impose a one world currency, impose all this technocracy where they're tracking you all the time and they can just surveillance all the time. It's like the Russian USSR, but way worse and way more subtle. So I've been investigating that and looking at the pandemic. It seems like these things are coming to fruition more and more, according to their great plan. So that's where I've been looking into.
Well, that is an interesting take on that particular topic. I think it's important to move on to another subject like democracy
Yeah. Okay.
and the effects democracy has had in the last 5 years
Mm-hmm.
and where the impacts receive the most uh, individual concerns. And I think, in my estimation, the biggest concerns f- when it comes to attacking our democracy is from the right, the Republican right, conservative leadership. And it's important to also note that they have been trying to attack our democracy for a long time now. And this is fairly recent, but also fairly uh, long term in the past, historically speaking. When evaluating historical events chronologically, there has been multiple attacks on our democracy. Um, I would definitely say Trump is the catalyst for those particular viewpoints and opinions. However, the Republican Party has some blame too. It's not only Trump, it's a lot of people that have discussed the truth and affirmation of these ideas and why they are so important in our current economic climate as well as our political climate. And so yeah, that's those are my thoughts on democracy. What do you think about those thoughts as well?
Okay. So in a nutshell, to take what you said, you believe that the Republican right is responsible for recent attacks on democracy in the past 5 years. Okay. Got that. Hmm. I sort of beg to differ. I think they're both in cahoots with each other, and Democratic or Republican, the notion of democracy in America has never really been stable. I mean, technically we're not a democracy, right? We're more like a republic, but it gets called democracy. And from what I can tell, although it might seem like the Republicans are trying to clamp down on the Democrats for their what seems like their work to ensure more freedoms. I think the Democrats also in some way are kind of going off the deep end and introducing too much weird stuff. So I can sort of see the dialectic between the two is necessary.
I definitely agree with that sentiment. I think I believe in terms of the US, we are a democratic republic, if I am correct with that
Okay.
information.
Yeah. I
Um,
think it's more like it.
which that basically means that we elect our representatives through electoral colleges. And it isn't, well, it's difficult to say that we are just purely a republic or purely a democracy. But for the most part, the US government operates on democratic principles and democracy. And that's the main selling point that they've had for the past, since they were originated back in 1776. And with that being said, nevertheless, I think that's important to understand as well as comprehend that democracy and principles of democracy, including things like freedom, equality, and liberty, are all inherited equally and all respected individually by all people in the United States. Otherwise, principles get thrown out the window and no one really cares, and that's obviously a negative aspect to pushing away people from democracy into anti-democratic norms. And it would be a problem to stray far away from that idea and that ideal, because from the past 4 years, learning from the Trump experience from 2016 all the way to 2020, we have seen riots and fires and fights and other catastrophes that have happened throughout that presidency, including the insurrection, that it's difficult to really deal with that one more time. It's just too much on the country, and it's too much on the unity of democracy and values relating to that as well. So the next time that we see us stray away from that particular norm, there will be probably a leader that comes forth, whether it be Biden or Harris or Pelosi. That's going to happen, and it's going to be a pivotal moment, in history when that occurs. And yeah, so in terms of democratic values, I think it's important that they stay committed to that principle of democracy. Otherwise, this pandemic, everything else will probably fall apart.
Yeah, it's not time. I don't know, the recent turmoil and violence and strikes and all that. I don't know if it's less to do with the Trump and his administration and more like, what's it to do?
You still there?
I don't know.
What are your thoughts on democracy? Do you have any thoughts, or do you want to change the subject?
I mean, I don't have any thoughts on it.
Oh, okay, no problem. Oh, what about the speech last night? Did you watch it?
No.
No. Oh, President Biden actually made a speech in front of Congress, and he proposed many ideas and plans that he has to fix, the current economic crisis as well as the pandemic. And he's just pretty much yesterday he outlined those plans. He went over them pretty well and thoroughly, and that was a good moment in U.S. history. So looking back at that, I think we can safely say that Biden has this pandemic under control, and we have like a consistent president with competence. And I think it's refreshing to see a president join that alliance with competency, because obviously Trump was not competent at all. And seeing that, viewing that from a particular angle demonstrates a positive future, I'd say. Also, just listening to what Biden plans to do is also a good thing. He proposed, better infrastructure. He proposed, getting shots into everyone's arms. He proposed, a plan to push out $4.1 trillion into the economy or something like that. And that was pretty a big deal for the Republicans and big deal for the Democrats too. So looking forward to see where that one goes. But it's obvious that he's on the right path. Biden, knowing all the Democrats from that aisle and appointing Kamala Harris as vice president, I think that's important to note as well. That she's leading the education effort. He's actually appointing his wife as well, Jill, to add 4 years to public school. So they're trying to add 4 years to public school, and have 2 years of community college paid for, and so that's a huge, uh, you know, feature of their presidency so far.
They want to add 4 years to public education.
Yeah, they want to. Their plan is to, add 4 years to preschool. So kids will be in school for 4 more years. In elementary school, I think they said something like that. In the speech yesterday. And then they want to pay for 2 years of community college for everyone, for all students. So they really want to focus on education. That's what they're trying to do.
How early
And
do
they're
they want to
spending a
get
lot.
them in? How
What's
early
that?
are they supposed to get in? So do you want to add them to the elementary years? So when would they start? Like 3 years old or something?
They would probably be around 2 years old
Oh
because
my
I
God.
know, um, like preschool starts at age 6, I think. So it'd probably start when they were like 2 years old. I'm
Yeah,
not sure how that actually works, but it's
that's
it's
crazy. Man.
cool. It's interesting to think about. Definitely, I think it would take some time for that to actually be a reality, but it makes sense according to their plan. Um, but yeah, I think that's a great step forward. Many of the Democrats support that idea, but many of the Republicans obviously don't support that idea, probably because they think that we have a solid education system right now as it currently is. But I disagree. I think the higher education system is in need of like a revampment or a reform, not only in terms of economics because the prices have inflated, but also in terms of the quality of the education because people are getting less quality for education and paying more for education. So I think
Yeah, that's
colleges need to work on that and talk with the government and work with the government cooperation in order to fix that issue. It's a huge issue.
okay. God, that sounds crazy. And another 4 years of public schooling, which to me has been nothing better than just, I guess, some learning, some brainwashing. But to start them off that young, I don't know. I'm very concerned about that. I don't think that's any good. I mean, leaving a school, it's apparent that teenagers don't really have any valuable skills or much of autonomy. They just want to rebel for a reason because the whole system is just calcifying to the mind. And so to add even more of that at a very young age, it sounds more like their desire to impose more controls on people's minds.
Do you really think that?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think they have our best intentions in mind at all.
I strongly believe that adding that 4 years onto the public education system will definitely improve people's lives. I mean, that's extra 4 years of studying.
Hmm.
It's training for young children. I mean, it's not a huge detriment to their life. They probably need those
I mean,
four
assuming
extra
it's
4 years.
quality training. Yeah, assuming it's quality training for sure. Just, I don't know, we'd have to see how it all comes down to the quality of that education. If it's any good, perhaps it'd be a win, but generally speaking, I don't think so. Looking at the quality of education in general.
So you wouldn't support a high tax hike for the purpose of funding education systems?
No, I personally would not.
Okay. Do many Republicans agree with you? So you are not alone.
Hopefully, I guess.
However, many Democrats disagree at the same time, and it's difficult. I mean, looking at the education system as it is right now, I think you may be right, and you have a point that it's probably a bad idea to include 4 extra years in elementary school or middle school or whatever it may be, because maybe the quality is bad or whatever that that means. But I think it's also important, like, to see from a positive perspective that education is definitely a good thing as opposed to a bad thing. I don't think education's a bad thing. You know, imagine like everyone there will be a 16th grade, right? And so you will be 22 years old when you graduate from high school, right? It's still a good age to be graduating from high school. It's still a young age. Additionally, you will probably go to college if you want to, and that would be for extra 4 years, and you will be 26 by the time you graduate, right? So that's an additional bonus of your education. And imagine, think about how like that person will develop as that century moves forward. Definitely, I mean, it just seems like it's a great uh, policy standpoint that Biden has proposed, in my opinion,
Okay.
at least.
Well, sure. If that education involved any real applicable skills to the market or even educating character, which schools are notoriously bad at. I mean, from my perspective, I think school is just to program people to behave and be obedient and compliant and to have a limited amount of thoughts. So to have more of that schooling, again, I don't think it's good for the mind. I mean, I just finished college and yeah, there was a lot of thinking and thinking and thinking, I guess more free thought, but I mean, not really still. It was still more within the limited agenda and it's not really a skill. Yeah, I
So,
don't think any more schooling would do much.
if I'm getting this correctly, you believe that training for a particular skill, an exact skill, like for example, um, like electricians or plumbers,
Yeah,
like a trade school,
related thing,
you
mechanical, even more broadly than that, or training in people skills,
yeah,
relevant skills. It doesn't have to be specific to a job. There's just certain aptitudes, we all have certain aptitudes, musically, mechanically,
mhm.
people wise. Those should be refined more, I think, that we're gonna get the most bang for our buck by training people in their inherent intelligences.
Right. But do you believe that a broad social liberal arts education is more valuable than, let's say, a occupational trade school occupation that trains people for particular employment opportunities?
I think there's a balance with that. If formal humanities education, it does open one's mind up a bit. It's meant to make you question and think and develop your own thoughts and know how to think.
Yeah.
But lately, those liberal arts
Critical
think,
thinking has fell off.
yeah, it's really fell off. Creative thinking has fell off. Even, and I know this, even in my schools, very few classes want actual critical thinking. They just want you to listen to the professor. So it's
Right.
just a repeat of the education system, which again, they're proposing another 4 years of that, which is to spit back out and regurgitate. There's glaring flaws in the education system
Definitely. I
that to
totally
see
agree.
another 4 years. I mean, look, what does the government want in the end? They want compliance. They want people to go with the flow and just go with the agenda without questioning anything. And that's what the school systems are there to breed, I think.
Absolutely. Well, Rafi, it was really nice talking to you. Thank you for being here. And that's the wrap. We're wrapping it up right now. So I hope you have a great rest of your day, man. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, bye.